All right, so I'm hearing, people are still somewhat in the disbelief over Alexander Volkanovski losing his title, and it seems like people have kind of, they've accepted what happened. Some people might be in delusion somewhere. Who knows? I bet they're still out there, but a lot of people have accepted what happened, and now they're trying to come up with a reason why it happened. And I've kind of heard from some of the more commentators like Bisbing types, like all these guys are just assuming like, oh well, Volk was 35, he's getting old, and so it seems like the kind of mainstream belief is that it was because he was old, right? He's 35. He's just hit that point where his body just starts falling apart the minute he gets touched, which is again bizarre. I mean, we got guys like Randy Couture winning championships. We have Yoel Romero, going in there and having, I mean, if things had gone left a little bit with the Whitaker fights, he easily could have been a champion in defending things, So it's, and then we all have Glover Teixeira winning the lightweight title in his 40s. It's like really age is a mindset. I just want to let you guys know. Don't assume just because you hit a number, all of a sudden things are falling apart. Things are falling apart on people way younger due to, bad diets, bad lifestyles, drug use. There's a reason why people just are falling apart. Not to mention a lot of these guys who don't have chins anymore, a lot of them it's due to them having these crazy kind of dumb fighting styles where their whole fighting style is dependent off of being able to eat punches. And big surprise, you won't be able to sustain that forever. So I just don't think that. Okay, so my reasoning for why Volk lost was not because of age. He looked great in that fight. Honestly, when he was fighting in that first round, I thought, oh wow, he might actually win this fight because I had predicted that he was probably going to lose by KO. And honestly, I didn't give a round, but if I had to have given a round beforehand, I probably would have said third round, honestly. But second round isn't, it's not too surprising. I mean, Ilya's a fight fast twitch KO kind of guy. If he's gonna win, it's gonna be by KO in the early rounds. I mean, it's just kind of basic knowledge, really, right? But he didn't look old in that fight. He didn't look old, and I don't even think that him getting kicked in the head by Islam was necessarily what did it. I do think he came back early from taking a massive head kick that knocked him out to then fighting again 3 months later and then getting KO'd again. I do think there might have been some residual damage there, but to get KO'd in one punch, I just think that like has Volkanovski's chin ever really been tested? I think that's the big question. Like, has it ever really been tested? Because I've watched some of his fights, and it seems like really the only fight where he really got tested by a guy with power was the Chad Mendes fight. And interesting enough, a lot of people went over the fact that Volk has his most success against taller opponents. When he goes up against taller guys like Islam, like Max Holloway, he tends to be very successful. And it's interesting because normally you think, well, most smaller guys usually have problems with taller guys because it's so difficult to get within hitting range. Whereas with shorter guys, you're both in each other's range, so it's easy to hit. But everyone's fighting style is different. Everyone has a different way of doing things. Like you may have guys like Volk who may be experts at dealing with taller, longer opponents, but then when it comes to dealing with someone like himself, he's not very good at dealing with them, right? Like in the Chad Mendes fight, they were around the same size, and yet Chad was, he did a lot of damage to Volk, and you don't really see that. I mean, even in his fight with Max Holloway, there were times where he definitely got hurt, but again, it's like Max Holloway is not a KO artist. He's not really even a TKO guy. I mean, I guess he is a TKO guy, but like how much when he finishes someone, how much of it is due to the damage and how much of it is due to exhaustion. So you have to think like if Volk has such a gas tank that he won't get tired for 5 rounds, then if Max is only throwing damage at him and there's no major exhaustion to really make him give up, essentially, because that's what happens when a lot of guys get TKO, especially by high volume, they give up. It's more of a mental thing than it is a physical thing. Because again, the high volume guys, they don't have the damage to be able to put you out in one shot, so they have to kind of drown you out with a ton of shots, with dozens and dozens of them. So it's more of a mental thing. But Volk would never go down due to something like that. He would never lose to any of these high volume guys who are just going to throw palos on him. But even with Max Holloway, there were moments, especially in the second fight, where he did get hurt. And you have to think, well, Max Holloway doesn't have power. I mean, he's a high volume fighter. His whole style is based off not having power. And yet he got hurt kind of in that fight. And he got hurt in some other fights. He has pretty good defense. When it comes to just athleticism, essentially, when you look at his defense, he's mainly about backing out, getting out of there, right? He tends to stick his head up in the air. He throws his chin up. A lot of channels kind of brought that up. And it's never really been a problem. Unfortunately, too, if we're being honest, a lot of trainers, a lot of these coaches out there, why hasn't this been fixed? I assume that some of these guys on YouTube are literally better coaches, probably better nutritionists than most of these guys in the game. Most of these guys in the game, they're just there, like there's a ton of people that would give better advice, would help you lose more weight, all this stuff. Like some of the advice from some of these YouTubers they're already calling out the stuff. Well, he got knocked out for all these reasons, and you can see the proof is right there. They're showing it to you. But these head coaches that have been teaching fighters for decades, why aren't they fixing these things? Again, like a lot of these guys are having fighters come in, not because of how great they are, but just because they opened a gym and people come in. It's like the head coaches themselves aren't very good. A lot of these guys are old fat dudes too. What do they know? What do they know? Do they have all these belts? And if they do have the belts, when they became champion, was that a mediocre division at the time? Because, if you got 3 belts and it was all fighting off no-name mediocre guys or guys out of their prime and stuff, then you're not that great of a coach then, because you weren't that great of a fighter. So that kind of, takes us into a lot of stuff. But, Volk, again, I don't think he lost due to his age. I think it was definitely like Volk, his chin has never really been tested. We know his will has been tested, right? Doing 5 fights with Max Holloway is definitely going to test your will. He has the will. He has the physicality, the rugby background. He's able to athletic most guys. Like when he fights against Max, he's able to he's quicker and he's stronger and he's able to kind of out-athlete a lot of fighters. But he seems to have a problem with shorter guys, and his chin has never really been tested. If you watch the Aldo fight, Aldo never hit him with really anything. It was a weird fight for Aldo. He just stood there, did nothing most of the fight. If he actually went after Volk, we might have had a whole different timeline, honestly. But his chin never really got tested all that much. He's never really been hit with these powerful punches. He's never been kicked in the head by someone like Islam. The minute he took one kick by Islam, the minute he took one punch by Ilya, gone. Totally gone. Now, is he taking that kind of power from Max Holloway? Is he taking that kind of power from Yair? Well, he would have if he got hit with a kick, but he didn't get hit with a kick at all. So his chin never got tested in that fight. And, Brian Ortega, no, another pillow-handed guy. Max Holloway, another pillow-handed guy. Most of that division, Zombie, again, I don't think Zombie was able to land anything because, again, Volk is more athletic. He's faster. He's able to kind of get in and out of those situations. I don't think he got hurt at all in that fight. So, again, his chin didn't get tested. So, he's been so dominant in these fights due to him being the more athletic guy. And probably, I guess you could say more of a kickboxer, I guess. But he doesn't really have a martial arts style, which is why I don't really give him credit for that stuff. Because it's not like, is he using a specific style in order to get out? He's not really. He just goes in, does some kickboxing stuff, and then he's mainly athletic, really. But I don't think he lost due to his age. I think he lost because his chin has never really been tested, and recently he went up in competition, and it got tested. And you have to give it to Volk because he never got hurt really in the first. Well, I guess you could say he did get hurt in a couple moments in his first fight with Islam. There was a couple moments where he got hit and he kind of went backwards, but it was tough to say, did he get hurt or did he just lose balance because he was in these awkward positions before the shot even landed. But it does seem like Volk this whole time might have literally had a glass chin this whole time, because if you look at his career, other than a couple moments, really like maybe the Mendez fight, he's never really been tested. He's been that dominant when it comes to getting in and out of exchanges, that he's never really received any critical shots that you're like, oh, well, like Justin Gaethje, what Nate Diaz. These guys eat shots all the time, and yeah, sometimes they get dropped, sometimes they eat it and just walk through it. But their chins have been tested. We know that they have a chin right now, at least. But when it comes to Volk, there's not too many moments in his career where his chin has been tested, and then the minute it gets tested against Islam's kick, against Ilya's right hook, all of a sudden he immediately goes out. So I think he was just such a dominant champ that we never really saw him get tested chin wise. He got tested in a ton of other ways, but when it comes to his chin, he's never been tested. And the minute it did get tested, he wasn't able to like eat the kick. He wasn't able to eat the hook. He got hit with a critical shot and he went out. I think he's probably had a glass jaw, probably his well, maybe not a glass jaw, but he hasn't had a strong jaw. Like maybe it's not glass, but it's pretty close to glass. And the minute it got tested that we see, all of a sudden he goes out. So I think it was just a miscalculation that a lot of us just didn't know. There's so many variables in MMA, and there's punches, there's kicks, there's knees, there's elbows, there's athleticism, there's styles, there are physicality things like how tall you are, how long you are, how does someone deal with a southpaw, all of these variables that go into these fights. And so there's only so many variables that people kind of hold on to. They're like, well, he's stronger, or he's got better grappling ability, or he's a better striker, or like they'll find something and say like that's the thing, right? But there's a lot of variables that you kind of forget about, and I think a lot of people were so focused on Volk because he's such a good guy, and he's such a character that they didn't really think about like where is his kryptonite, and we kind of found it. It's his chin has never been that good, and I think that's the reason that he lost the fight. If you think the same, or if you have a different opinion, I actually want to read the comments. Usually I ignore them, but if you guys type something, I'll definitely read it. So I'll see you guys on the next one.